Hi, ladies and gentlemen. All right, thanks for watching our video today on elements of design and principles of design. Remember, this is just a review sheet for foundations in art. This covers things that you may have already learned in either 6th, 7th, or 8th grade art, right? Or maybe brand new to you. Remember, foundations in art is kind of catching everything. We're making sure that we cover all of these so that you've got a good basis to continue on to some of our other upper level electives. Alrighty, so let's get started. If you think about it this way, elements of design are kind of like our ingredients, right? These are the chocolate chips, the sugar, the flour, the butter, the baking soda to make our cookies, right? Here's the recipe, right? Principles of design. We use elements of design, color, texture, line, shape, form, space, value, to make principles of design, right? We use these to make balance happen. We use these to make contrast happen. We use these to make emphasis, unity, repetition. And as we do this little exercise today, I think it's going to be really obvious how that works. Okay, so let's start with the basics, color. Okay, you remember learning primary color and secondary color in elementary school. So remember the three primary colors are red, yellow, and of course blue. However, if you've ever looked at a printer cartridge, you actually know that the red and the blue in particular don't really look like Crayola crayon like royal blue or fire engine Crayola crayon red. They actually look kind of pink and turquoise. And we call those two colors magenta and cyan. Right, this is your blue, this is your red when you're doing color mixing. And that's going to give you much brighter colors. We'll go further into depth with that with some projects this year. Okay, your three secondary colors are, remember we mix primaries to get secondaries. That is green, purple, and orange. So let's grab our colored pencils for a second. Let's fill those in. We'll be doing a lot with color this year. But most importantly, we wanted to refresh and review and make sure that you guys remember some of the basics from all the way back to elementary school to even more recently in 6th or 7th grade. All right, so there's my red, yellow, blue. Let's now fill in. Just do your best to find something that looks kind of like turquoisey and kind of magenta. Yeah, I guess that looks kind of magenta-y. Magenta is actually a little bit more pinkish than that, right? But this is just a note sheet. We're just taking some notes here. Add some more pink on top of it. Maybe I can make it look a little bit more magenta-y. Ooh, there we go. Okay, and then I'm going to fill in my secondaries, my green, my purple, and I'm going to also include purple/violet. Because a lot of times in art, you'll hear purple referred to as violet because of the color spectrum. Okay, and then of course, orange. Excellent, so that's our little color review. The next element of design is texture. Remember, there are two different types of texture. There's real texture, and this we use in sculpture or relief artwork, right? And that's something that actually feels when you run your hands over it, rough, bumpy, scaly, okay? Or smooth. Implied texture is a little different, right? It's when we're creating the illusion of those textures in a painting or drawing in a two-dimensional work of art, right? So if I do a beautiful drawing of a puppy dog and I do all sorts of gorgeous sketching and I make that fur texture look really soft and fuzzy, but if you run your hands over it, you're just gonna have pencil-y hands, right? But it's gonna be the smooth surface of the paper. It's an implied texture. I'm implying through my drawing skills and line work and shading work that that dog is fuzzy, but the dog doesn't actually feel fuzzy, it's on paper, okay? So, name something that would feel fuzzy. Little warm-up exercise here for our brains. Kitty. You can put down anything that you think of as fuzzy. Rough, I don't know, sandpaper. slippery, soap. I don't know, maybe frog, or I once had a kid write snot. That was hilarious. Smooth, tabletop, glass, maybe ice. Bumpy, toad, prickery, cactus. And then what I'd like you to do next door is do a 1, give yourself a little section, a 2, give yourself a little section, and a 3, little section. And I'd like you to draw 3 different textures. Note, these will be implied textures, right? Because they're just gonna feel like the paper, but we're implying that they'd feel like something. So I guess I'm gonna do kind of a bumpy, scaly texture here in 1. And 2, I guess I'll do something that kind of looks like it might be fuzzy or even rough. And you know what, in 3, I'll do that spiky cactus texture, implied texture. Right, when we get to sculpture in here, we'll certainly work with real texture. But for now, implied. Excellent. Okay, so we've covered texture. Let's move on down to line. All a line is the distance between 2 points, right? Mathematical term. Lines can go in 3 directions. Lines can be horizontal. Lines can be vertical. Lines can also run diagonal. All right, there are lots and lots and lots and lots of different lines, okay? What I'd like you to do in the next section is let's just draw 3 different kinds of lines. All right, I'm gonna do, I like the ones we got listed up there. I'm gonna do curvy line, curvy swavy line. I'm gonna do couple big chunky fat lines here, right? You only have to do 3. Always feel that you can go above and beyond though. So I'll do another big chunky fat line here. And then I'll do a dotted or a broken line. Kind of like the idea of that. I'll have it kind of weaving in and out around. Cool, so lots of different ways that we can use line in our artwork. Moving on down to shape, okay? There are 2 families of shape, geometric and amorphic or freeform. I also like to use the phrase organic. There we go, a little spelling error, sorry about that. So freeform or organic lines. All right, or shape, I should say. And same thing down here, amorphic, I'm gonna put organic. Okay, as well, just so you know that they're all interchangeable terms. Shapes are flat, 2D, right? They have height and width, and they're really just connected lines. So let's draw 3 basic geometric shapes, right? I know we can all think of 3: circle, square, and triangle. Grab any colors you like, folks. Let's give these guys a little fill-in. Right? Notes are fun when we get a chance to use some of our colored pencils, crayons, whatever you happen to have with you. Okay, let's go next door. I'd like you to now draw 3 amorphic or organic or free-form shapes. Right? A lot of what we do in art will involve shapes that have no mathematical formula to them whatsoever. They're just natural. They're just kind of made up. And same thing, let's have some fun. Go ahead, give these a little color in. Let's fill them in. There we go. Excellent. And yeah, I'll grab this blue one again. So there we have it. We've got geometric, right, shapes. These can be defined by mathematic principles, right? And our amorphic, these are just our freeform ones. All right, let's go down to form. So eventually we will get to do some 2D stuff in here. So a shape that's made to look 3D can be form, or it can also be 3D itself, like sculpture, okay? When we say something is made to look 3D, though, too, we can be talking about the form in a drawing, okay? So what I'd like us to do here is I'd like you to draw a cylinder, a cone, a sphere, and a cube. So cylinder, start with that like ellipse at the top. Give yourself 2 straight sides, and then give yourself a matching curve to the front edge at the bottom, or close to matching. Cone starts with the little triangle hat, but instead of having a straight bottom, it has a curved bottom. There we go. Sphere, just give yourself a circle to start with. And the cube, I like to start with a square, and then I've got more space off to my right here, so I'm going to add 1, 2, 3 parallel edges, and then 1, 2 to close off the back and create the cube. Okay, get as even a cube as you can. All right, now we're going to actually add a little shading to this to make it feel like it's got that 3-dimensional form. So I want you to imagine there's a bar of light coming from the side here, and this is going to be your light source. And that light is like flooding in evenly from the left-hand side. Now we know, again, review from 6th and 7th grade art, and 8th grade art even, that closest to the light source is lightest, furthest away is darker. So we're going to use our pencil here. If you've got pen or just colored pencil, that's fine. Remember, this is just kind of a practice warm-up note sheet, so you can still shade with that, but trust me, number 2, regular old pencil is much easier. We're going to do a little shading. Because this is a round object, I'm going to use my curved shade stroke. I'll even use my finger. Give it a little smudge in there. And as it comes closer to the light source, my shading's going to get lighter and lighter and lighter. On the flat side of the top, it'll probably be maybe a little bit lighter. Maybe it's catching a little bit more light. Get a little, or a little bit less light. Be a little bit darker. Give a little shading. There we go. Illusion of form. Same thing on our cone. Furthest away from my light source is going to be darkest. And then we're going to use that curve shading stroke to create the round illusion of form. You can even give it a little smudge, right? Use your eraser. I think erasers are great blending tools as well. Okay, let's do the same thing with the sphere. Same thing, curve shading stroke. Heaviest pencil pressure furthest away from the light source. And then as I get closer, lighter and lighter and lighter. Right, shade with the form. This is a curvy round object, so let's keep it, our pencil stroke curvy and round. Excellent. Now the cube's a little bit different. We're just going to imagine that maybe this side or this side is our lightest, because our lightest side would most likely be hidden. And we'll leave that blank. And then we're going to add just a nice middle value to a side away from the light source. Okay, and then a darker value on the side furthest away from the light source. And that's going to create that illusion that this cube is really super 3D. We don't have to curve our shading stroke on straight-sided objects because light doesn't bend around them, it just bounces off. Give a really light value to the top there. Okay, and voila, illusion of form using a little bit of shading in that light source. Let's talk about space next. Coming on down to space, another element of design. Okay, with space, let me grab my green pencil here, we have 2 types of space. We can fill in the positive space, or we can focus on the negative space. And I'm going to illustrate the difference here. First, grab your colored pencil, and I want you in this box to fill in the positive space. Positive space is the stuff you've drawn. The actual, like, objects themselves. There they are. Okay. But one thing we as artists know is that we're never just concerned with only the positive space, right? Artists know that the negative space, the area around the objects they draw, can be just as dynamic and just as interesting. Okay, so I'll finish filling in positive space here. Okay, or the area around the objects that have been drawn, right? That's your negative space. This can be as interesting, as dynamic as your positive space. Craftsmanship counts on the worksheet. Take your time. Do a nice job. You know, at any point during this video, if I'm going too fast, there we go, go ahead and pause it, right? Finish doing what we've just done together here on this worksheet, and then go ahead and pick it right back up and hit play again. All right, almost there. And right here with color, right, the positive versus negative space becomes really apparent. All right, that's looking pretty good. Excellent. Finally, very good. We're now on to our last element of design, and that's value. Okay, and that's just, you know, the darkness or lightness of a color. Okay, so we're just going to use regular old number 2 pencil. It's going to work really well for this. You could do this in pen and ink if you wanted to, or colored pencil. You just have to work a little bit harder at it. I think it works easiest with regular pencil. And I'm going to rotate and tilt my page just so I'm in a little bit easier shading direction. I apologize for the bell here. There it goes. And we're going to start in the first rectangle by going dark to light. So I'm going to use my heaviest pencil pressure, and let's create a value range here. So dark, 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 dark. And I'm going to start lightening up on my pencil pressure, lifting up on that pencil, lighter pressure, pressing lighter and lighter and lighter until it's just going to fade away to the lightest mark I can make, almost totally light, fading to the white of the paper. Okay, I can also, by the way, do the reverse. So let's go from light to dark this time. So we're going to start with just the white of the paper, absolutely lightest pencil pressure I can make. And as I go further down the line this time, I'm going to start pressing harder and harder and harder until I'm to the absolute darkest, darkest, darkest value I can make. Right, and that graphite gets really glossy and dark. Excellent. There we go. I'm going to have a little eraser there. There we go. We have the elements of design: color, texture, line, shape, form, space, and value. Remember, these are like the ingredients that go into making the principles of design happens, right? We use these to make these happen. So if you think about it, this is like our recipe for chocolate chip cookies. These are the ingredients, right? This is like the flour, the butter, the chocolate chips, the sugar. All right? All right, so let's flip over to our next page, to Principles of Design. I'm going to take a moment to make sure I'm still properly on camera. Excellent, I am. I'm going to set this to the side. And let's now talk a little bit about the principles of design, okay? We're going to cover 5 of the main principles of design and foundations of art this year: balance, contrast, emphasis, unity, and repetition. Remember, we're going to use these, the color, texture, line, shape, form, space, value, to make these happen. Let's talk about balance first. Okay, there are a couple different types of balance. There is radial balance, there is symmetry, meaning both sides are the same, and asymmetry, meaning still balanced, but each side is different. So I want you to think about this like scales. Give yourself a little drawing of scales up here. So give yourself a little dot, little arm, little post, right? And you're putting equal visual weight on either side so that your artwork stays balanced. All right, now sometimes what'll be on either side is identical and sometimes it won't be. Let's first start with radial balance. Give yourself a little dot in the center, okay? And I want you to give yourself 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little pie wedges, okay? And an it's going to be 6 lines, but it ends up being 6 little pie wedges as well. So, sorry, a little unclear on that, all right? And what I'd like you to do is I want you to create radial balance using color. And what I mean by that is it's going to alternate, okay? So if I start with, one color, let's do 2. I'm gonna have orange there. And then I'll have a blue here, all right? And then an orange here. And so this is radiating out from the center, having these alternating colors that are happening. Oops, sorry guys, I was off one. I'm gonna turn this into a bigger pie wedge. See, I make mistakes all the time too. So there's my radial balance radiating out, okay? If I split that into 2 extras, it would have still worked out, okay? So there's my radiating balance. We'll do this a lot with mandala, okay, and having that drawn out and designed, okay, with our mandala painting project. In the next section, symmetry, both sides are the same. I want you to draw 2 circles, 2 squares, 2 triangles, and we're gonna create formal balance with symmetry, meaning the design is gonna be identical on either side. So I'm gonna grab just my regular old number 2 to start drawing with, okay? And let's create some formal symmetry. I'm gonna start with a circle. I'll add a square here, and then, I'll have a triangle that kind of overlaps both of them. Okay, I'm gonna do my best to recreate the same thing over here. Formally balanced. Here's a circle. Right, it's not gonna be identical, but it's gonna be darn close. There's my square. And there's my triangle. Lovely. Okay, and I'm gonna give it some color here. Let's work with kind of pinks, peaches, and greens. And because it has symmetry, I'm gonna make sure that each element matches from side to side identically. All right, so I'm gonna keep color in the same place. Our shapes are obviously staying in the same place. All right, and then finally, there we go, a little peachy circle to it. Beautiful. Ta-da! All right, let's talk about asymmetry. Now, it doesn't have to be identical on either side or radiating around for it to have symmetry, okay? It can be different on either side. But again, think about it like scales. It's got equal visual weight. So once again, I'm gonna use, if we think about this as either side of my design, I'm gonna use 2 circles, 2 squares, and 2 triangles, but this time I'm gonna use informal balance or asymmetry. All right, so let's see, I'm gonna start with kind of a similar size circle. And this one I'm gonna do little square and then maybe like a really big triangle that goes behind it. Okay, but on this one I'm gonna do a really big square tiny triangle and maybe kind of a medium-sized circle overlapping it in front. Do you see what I mean? These are different drawings, but they take up the same visual space. They have the same visual balance to them. Okay, I don't have one side that feels like it has much more stuff than the other. Right? I'm gonna grab the same colors again, and once more, it doesn't have to be identical in informal balance or asymmetry, but it's got to take up kind of the same amount of space and be evenly used and spread out. So I'm still going to repeat some of my colors. I'm just going to have them used in a bit of a different way. Right, so here I have used color and shape to create balance. Awesome. All right. Contrast. Let's move on down. So that covers balance, contrast, or variety. Why do we want to use contrast or variety? It avoids monotony. It makes your artwork much more interesting. And oftentimes it's achieved through opposites. So for example, long versus short. Let's say skinny or thin versus fat. That would be another one. Let's say rough versus smooth. Size, right? It could be small versus big, right? Just scale-wise. It could be even value, right? Dark and light. Okay. It could even be something that's kind of like a kind of messy, like messy pen line versus like neat and tidy. Okay, so there are lots of different contrasts. What I'd like you to do over here is choose a shape or an object, and I want you to draw it according to one of your contrasts. Okay, so I'm going to choose rough versus smooth. Rough, smooth. All right, and I am going to draw a circle or sphere that looks rough and one that looks smooth. And I'm going to use value. I'm going to use some shading, okay, to make that happen, right? Again, I can use my elements of design to create these contrasts. Okay. And line as well, haven't I? I've used line and value. Okay, so there's my smooth sphere. And let's make my jagged sphere or jagged lump here look really kind of rough and jaggedy. Ta-da! Rough versus smooth. There it is. Okay, let's talk about our third principle of design, emphasis. This is the focal point. This is what you look at first in an artwork. Where's your eye drawn to? All right, what's the attention getter? And so what I'd like you to do is we're gonna have two little compositions here. You're gonna draw a composition using a triangle, a circle, and a square, and you're gonna put emphasis on the circle. So let's do the first one in this box here. Triangle. To circle and a square. We'll have the square going behind it. Okay, so there's triangle, circle, and square. I'm going to use color first to do emphasis. So I think I'll do my triangle and my square, these cool blue colors, kind of flat shaded. And then once again, I'll use value, and I think my warm, bright orange, yellow colors to make this one stand out and even give it a little bit of form, right? So I'm going to have flat shape that then looks like maybe it's got a bit of form happening to it. So I'm going to use a mixture of like my orange and yellow. And even maybe I'll darken that orange on the outer edges by using a little bit of the red colored pencil. Boom, there we go. I look right at the circle first thing. Let's do another design. This time I'll have maybe the square. Ooh, that's kind of more of a rectangle. That's not really a square. Oops. Make that look a little more square-like. Sorry, guys. Actually, no, let's leave the triangle in front on that one. Okay, and once again, I'm going to put emphasis on the circle. And this time I think I'm going to do it with line, okay? So I'll have these square and triangles be different colors again this time. But instead I'm going to make the circle stand out using just cool line, I think. So we'll still use some bright colors on the square and the triangle. Ooh, that's a much brighter yellow than the other one. All right, but I'm going to make the circle stand out this time, doing something totally different. I'm gonna do just some cool, like swirling line work. Right, two totally different ways. Emphasis is on the circle. It's what you look at first. All right, let's head to our second to last, unity. Okay, unity is what holds a composition together. And there are two ways to do this. One is through line, just in how you place your objects, and one is through overlap. Okay, so first let's take a basic shape. Let's just start with something like a circle. And I want you to create a bunch of circles, but I want you to make them look like they go together. And without touching the circles, I want you to kind of arrange them into a line or grouping, right? Sure, these circles are different, but I get the feeling that they all kind of belong together in this composition because of how we've used them with line. Go ahead and give them a little shade in. Right, I'm even going to be fancy and make them a little bit 3D even. I'll make them a little spherish. You don't have to do this. I'm just having a little bit of fun with the worksheet. Right, you could shade them in flat. But I want you to arrange, you could do a different shape too. If you want to arrange triangles into a line. Right, but just arrange and place the objects, whatever you choose to draw, so that your eye has to move. Hey ladies and gentlemen, sorry about that. I realized that my video cut out as I was doing Unity, and I didn't figure it out until I got to the end of the worksheet. So let me walk you through this now just to wrap up our last quick 4 boxes. Okay, so after you finish a line with Unity, the next thing I want you to do is pick any shape, and I want you to use overlap. So make sure you write down overlap here if you haven't done that. Okay. And I want you to overlap shapes so that they appear to belong together, right? Whether it's circles, triangles, squares, amorphic shapes that you create, create a little design using overlap so it looks like those disparate shapes come together. So that's what I've done here, right? I've overlapped the corners of each of these squares to create the look that, yes, this is a grouping, this is a composition. So take time to do that. Finally, we're going to go down to repetition. Again, because I'm doing this verbally here through this part, if you need to pause this video at any moment so that you have time to draw, by all means do so, okay? So repetition, what is repetition? It's just a recurring theme or motif. Three kinds that we're going to really focus on in Foundations in Art. Movement, pattern, and rhythm. So in the first box here, what I want you to do is using shapes, okay? You can also use line and other things with it. Doesn't matter whether it's geometric or organic amorphic. I want you to create a design that shows movement. So in this case, I've used these like amorphic swirls in a line to create this sense of swirling movement. I then, in the next box, want you to repeat patterns. Use shape, line, color, etc. Remember, elements of design are like the ingredients that go with the recipe, right? It's how we use these. So use any of those color, line, shape, form even, to create patterns. So right here I did like a little dot and 2 dashes. I did some squiggles and little shapes, right? Some lines and dots to create some interesting pattern. And then finally, I'd like you to show rhythm. Again, using line, shape, anything like that. Color, even too. I've created the sense of rhythm by using ascending and descending thickness of line, right? It almost becomes like rectangle in shape in the middle and then descends. So it creates a sense of like drumbeat or rhythm, okay, getting louder. And that finishes off your Principles of Design worksheet. Ladies and gents, this was a review, right? Don't worry if something didn't get covered in one of your previous art classes, right, in 6th, 7th, or 8th grade. Some of this may seem familiar, some of it may all seem new, particularly if you haven't had art in a while. It's no worries. This was just a refresher and a little introduction into what Foundations in Art is going to be focused on throughout the year. And if you take anything away from this, remember, the elements of design, color, texture, line, shape, form, space, and value, can be used to create the principles of design, right? To create balance, right? We can use color and line to create contrast. We can use form and texture to create emphasis or line. And that's how I want you to start thinking about these. All right, so thanks for taking some notes with me today, and I'll be seeing you next time. Bye-bye.